Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Whelan, the host of the WB Download, and I want to invite you and welcome you to our podcast. My brother and I own and operate Whelan Builders. It's a custom home building company here in Southwest Ohio. The WB Download mostly focuses on interviewing folks associated with custom building. We stray now and then to interview people who I think are interesting and to break up the monotony of the same old podcast. I also like to highlight things that are going on in my everyday life along with our businesses. I started this podcast to help people understand the custom builder world, but to also give people a chance to hear what others have to say and highlight their expertise and experiences in life. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month with a new topic and or guest each time. I hope you join us here on the WB Download and enjoy listening and hearing stories of people in and out of the custom builder world. Welcome to the WB Download. All right. Well, hello again, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October the 28th. Welcome to the WB Download. I'm Jeff Whelan. We're in Southwest Ohio here. I know I always talk about the weather, but it's cold. Cold. Had our first freeze warning last week already, and I hope that's not an indication of what this winter's going to do. But everybody I've ever talked to is always like, "Oh, it's going to be a horrible winter." Most of the guys that sell salt because they want you to buy salt. But yeah, it's cold here. We've had a little bit of rain, and there's a lot of moisture in the ground. But I think most of the guys have gotten their crops off, and it hasn't held them up yet. But it's probably pulling them back from certain fields. Hey, we're busy here. We're finishing up a couple of different jobs, just trying to get them wrapped up before the holidays. Everybody, for some reason, that marks. I always have people like, when I go to dinner, let's get to dinner before the holidays or around the holidays or whatever. And now it's the same thing with building houses. Are we going to be in before Christmas? The answer is usually I don't know, but I'm going to try. But we do have 3 of them that are going to get in before Christmas, and actually 4 because we have the in-law suite that we're going to do. But other than that, we finished up the Vanderin over in Liberty Township, and such an awesome house, and the people who we built for. We really have gotten into being able to work within companies and within families and working over and over for the same family. And those folks are one of 3 partners in a business, in a technology business. And we built their other partner's house over in Indian Hills. So it was a pleasure. It was gratifying to be able to do that. And it's just a beautiful house. So I hope you get on their website and check it out, get on their social media and see some of the videos that we did over there and see the whole house inside and out. Really, really cool project. But all the other ones, we've got some things that we're starting. We're getting ready to start one in Madeira, and that one's one that we've been working on for a little while. So that was pretty neat. We're also in the midst of, we're designing another one over in Liberty Township. We have a bunch in architecture right now. But we also have our Humrama house for 2026 in architecture, and that one's really cool because I'm not going to spoil it just yet, but we will talk through it as the next year approaches here. But we've got some special things that are going on in there that take special people, things that I've never worked with before, where we have to get outside consultants to help us. So it's going to be pretty cool. One other thing, we are hiring here at Whelan Builders. I know I brag about this team all the time, and lo and behold, somebody always does something stupid. And so we are hiring, and I want somebody who we call it hungry, humble, and smart, from the Ideal Team Player, if you've ever read that book, and check it out. But I need somebody who's hungry, and I want somebody who's smart and is not a piece of crap. That would be great if you could come and apply here at Whelan Builders. Another thing that happened between now and the last podcast was Carrie, our office manager. It was her birthday. It was a big one, and we celebrated her birthday. And also, it was Leanne Matthews' 4-year anniversary here at Whelan Builders. She is been here for the long haul and does a wonderful job, does a great job. She's responsible for getting this podcast out to you amongst a million other things, and pretty exciting to have her here for so long and all the things she does. So thank you for being here, Leanne. And I hope everybody enjoyed that last podcast with Brian Lapthorne, and the one before with Andy Korb. But that last one was really deep, and I've had some people call me up specifically and say, "Hey, I listened to that podcast. Thank you." And I've even my wife listened to it, which is crazy because she doesn't listen to the podcast, but she listened to it, and I don't know. I'm pretty proud of it. I like when you're brutally honest and putting things out there that people don't normally talk about. I enjoyed it, and Brian is such a great guy that I'm happy to see what he's working on. And I also in between this last podcast here, I did a show with Gary Sullivan. Gary Sullivan was a guest on our show. He's a radio personality here in Southwest Ohio on 1500 WKRC, and the first time he interviewed me was the first time I chaired Home Rama in 1999. So that was 26 years ago. And just about every single year since then, we've done multiple things together, whether on TV or on the radio. And so I got to do another interview with him last Sunday, I think it was 2 Sundays ago. And we just talked about the market, talked about building houses, talked about a number of different things. And I really enjoyed that because I've known him for so long and we've talked about things for so long. So thanks again, Gary, for doing that with us. On the farm, man, I hate to say it, but it's been a little bit quiet. We're getting prepared for winter. What that means is unfortunately, we've already been feeding hay, but we're trying to do some things that make our lives a little bit easier in the winter, because in the winter, you're either going through frozen ground or you're going through 2 feet of muck to get everywhere you go. And so we're trying to prep a couple of our feed areas to make them a little bit easier on the cows and make them easier on us. And we're also just, we've been also looking at some different things that are going to help us throughout the next year as far as fly control, paddock, is what, like a feedlot kind of area, control, and just a number of different things that we're trying to do to make our herd health, easier and better for everybody. So, the kids are getting ready to go, show what they call the best circuit. And, so that'll be I think it's a host of like 5 shows leading up to March to the Beef Expo up in Columbus. And we're going to try and hit as many of those as we can. We're also going to visit the Louisville here in a couple of weeks down for the North American International Livestock Exposition, which is what they call NALI. And we're going to go down there and watch a friend's show. We're going to watch a bunch of people show cattle so the kids can just see how the big dogs do it. So that's what's going on with us here. And so let me talk about my friend Tanner Konrady, who is our guest today here on the show. It is Konrady and Son down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And of course, that is another place that I would have never known existed unless I was in that Builder 20 group, and which I've recently, I don't know if I told everybody this, but I've recently stepped away from the group, been in that group for about 10 years. And I felt like maybe it was time to come back home here and just spend a lot more time. The kids are, Cody's in travel baseball. We're showing cattle all over the place. And we've got so many different things going on that kind of took some time away from the things we wanted to do with the family. So love this group, love a great group of people. I've learned so much, and I've had opportunity to see some of the greatest builders and the greatest houses ever built in the country, and Tanner is no exception. So I would have never ended up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Lo and behold, I have a good friend of mine. Her name is Regina. It was Regina Ehrman when we were growing up. Her and her husband live down there. Her family lives down there. It is a beach town, and it is just beautiful. I mean, it's amazing down there. And Tanner and his family and his company build some of the most exquisite, unbelievable houses down there on the water and throughout the town and in different places. Big multi-story stuff. They remodel, they maintain, and you're going to hear him talk about some of the other things that he does. But, one of the things that I think about when I think about Tanner a lot of times is when I am super swamped and I'm covered up and I need to keep persistent and keep consistent and keep on working. And I feel like that's the way Tanner is. Tanner is a I feel like he's an easygoing guy, but he continues to just work and continues to do his job and continues to be successful and doesn't get too upset, doesn't get frazzled, and doesn't quit. And so I think about him a lot when I'm in the thick of it. So he's inspired me, and I'm excited to have him on the show today here on the WB Download. It's Tanner Konrady from Konrady and Son Custom Homes down in Wilmington, North Carolina. Welcome to the show. All right, everybody, today, like I said, today our guest on the show is none other than Tanner Konrady from Konrady and Son in Wilmington, North Carolina. And Tanner, welcome to the show.
That's me. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
How you doing down there, brother? Are you cold? You guys got jackets on already, winter hats? I mean, I can imagine how rough it is down there on the beach.
We hardly own those articles of clothing. It's hot today. I'm in shorts. It's 80 plus degrees. Although I can't complain because we had actually a pretty mild September and even late August with some like high 70 type days. So that's unusual for us, and I'll take it.
So somebody who's from a beach town, when you go on vacation, do you go somewhere cold? Because like we're up in the cold and we go somewhere warm, and I just didn't know if you were looking for a change of scenery or what do you do for vacation?
It's so funny because as a kid, like never would we have dreamed of going to a beach for vacation. I think one time I can think of, we went to St. John, which is obviously a much different type deal. But as I've, gotten older and got a family, like we do vacation tropical occasionally, although it's typically out of the country if it's tropical, because we've got a really awesome beach that I would put up against anybody else's in the country. And so it's hard to go to another beach.
I don't disagree with you. I never even knew that it existed. And I'm amazed by these places that we get to go to on our Builder 20 trips that are so unbelievable. And it's like where high end people, so to speak, go to have second homes. And like when you talk about Harbor Springs, Michigan, and you talk about Anacortes, Washington, and Park City, Utah, and Wilmington, North Carolina. And oddly enough, one of my best friends from high school lives in Wilmington, North Carolina with her husband. And I was able to connect with her when we were down there the last time. And I'm like, man, I called her up and I was like, hey, I'm coming to North Carolina and I'm not sure if we're close to you or not, but we're going to be in Wilmington. She goes, I live in Wilmington. So it was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah. So really cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your family and your wife and your kids and what led you up to this point in your life today?
Well, I grew up, me and a younger sister, grew up, born and raised on Wrightsville Beach. My parents moved to Wilmington in the early 80s. They're both from, my dad was born in Florida, grew up in New Jersey, went to the college in the mountains of North Carolina. My mom's from New England, and they both ended up in Breckenridge, Colorado after college. That's where they met. And then my dad was building houses there. My mom was doing ski school, bartending, all the things they did back in the 70s in Colorado. And they moved to Wilmington in the 80s. My dad had couple brothers and sister that already lived here. He's got a big family. And they just never left. So I grew up here, born and raised on the beach. Awesome experience. I mean, you can't really beat it. My sister and I were, super active, always outside, beach things, boogie boarding, surfing, boating, played a lot of sports, just really active lifestyle growing up. So, graduated high school, went off to North Carolina State for a year. I almost didn't even last the whole year in Raleigh before I was like, I got to get back to the coast. So came home and just jumped into construction, started working full time for my dad, who had always been building houses on the beach. Took some time off, ended up finishing my degree at UNC Wilmington in business, but that's kind of, how I started building houses in Wilmington. Met my wife, who's also from Wilmington, who grew up with my sister. Met her my senior year of college. She was at UNC Greensboro. She was home for Christmas. We kind of met. We spent the semester kind of dating long distance, and then she moved back to Wilmington when she graduated. So we've been here ever since. We now have 2 young kids, a 7-year-old boy and a 4.5-year-old daughter, who are both very active. And as of last week, after I left Maine, we have a puppy. So the Portuguese water dog, Rocky. And he's awesome.
That's good. I remember, well, you sent me pictures of the dog, but how far apart are you and your sister? You're just a couple years apart, aren't you?
Yep, 2.5 years apart.
Yeah.
So I was a senior in high school when she was a freshman, which was good for me because all my buddies were looking out for her, bad for her because they were, she was walking with a dude in the hallway where they were slamming him up against the locker. So,
my kids are only 2 years apart, and I think that relationship's they get along pretty good. They bicker a little bit, but I see the way you guys have grown together, and I hope that's the way my kids do it too. It's just because they're so close in age. You get to be buddies when you get older and get along. You guys get along really good, don't you?
Yeah, I mean that piece has been great. We were kids, of course. We were like in and out of fights, and what siblings do all the time as kids. I was, in high school. She was in middle school still. So her and her friends weren't very cool. That's actually the first time I ever met my wife. I was in high school and they were like sixth grade. And obviously I wasn't interested because they weren't cool. But, as we've grown older, like we have the same friend groups. We hang out all the time. We have kids that are the same age now. So the cousins are always together. And she works with me. So we're around each other a lot. It's actually really cool. I guess I take for granted the uniqueness of that relationship sometimes, in thinking about it.
I know I do. I mean, for when I used to work with my parents many years ago, and you see them every day. You talk to them every single day, and the same thing with my brother now. I talk to him all the time and every day, and we're back and forth. And I'm like, you talk to some people and they're like, I haven't talked to my brother in a couple months. I'm like, how do you live like that? We're together all the time. Paint the landscape for what you guys do, because I didn't know what you did until we got there. I mean, I knew what you did, but I didn't understand the what you do exactly. And paint the landscape for what you guys do down there on the beach and all around town, building these unbelievable houses. But you have a number of other things you do in the town there.
Yeah, we do custom homes and renovations. So, more of the luxury level custom home building and remodeling. But we really do projects of every size and shape. People say sometimes, oh, this project's too small. And that's not the truth. The reality is every project is the right size for us. We have a team that can handle whatever it is. Partially that started because I started my career in 08, 07, 08, 09 when it was pretty rough, and the only thing there was out there to do was small junky remodels and rot wrangling. And I understood the value of being able to keep everybody busy. You didn't have to lay anybody off. We were steady through that time period while other companies were folding. So that piece has kind of always stuck with me, as I want to always have a program that can take on any size project. But our bread and butter is the high end renovation and new construction projects. In our area, a lot of stuff on pilings, coastal. So a lot of flood zone conversations and those kinds of rules and regulations we have to work through. And then as we've developed, a relationship with clients and a relationship with homeowners, and we do have a market where it's so many secondary homes, that we've built a service company on the back end that allows us to maintain and manage properties for people forever. And so we create a program that, we walk through the house once a month or twice a month or however many times we need to. We just make sure that it's operational, the thermostat's running, no water leaking. Ideally, we want people to be able to come into town and their house is ready for them to use, and they don't have to call us reactively and say, hey, our air conditioner's out. Certainly, it allows us to get ahead of things. It allows us to prepare the house. Nobody builds houses to sit still and empty. They're built to be used. And when these systems aren't operating, they're likely to fail in some capacity eventually. So we're trying to build a program that just creates this proactive property management piece, but also it maintains our relationship with the client forever and turns into future work. It turns into continued strong relationships. It's super beneficial in so many ways.
I never realized the importance of something like that until I'm in the group, in the Builder 20 group, we talk about it a lot. And you guys are the ones who, the vacation guys are the ones who probably initiated this, but the opportunity to continue to work for the families, that you get whatever you're doing for them, you continue to work for them And I spent a lot of years, in my career just saying, I'm going to build this house and I can't wait to get rid of you. So it's like, let's get done. We're going to move on to the next one. Let's get done. Let's move on to the next one. And now for the last several years, I find it an honor to be able to build a house for somebody and then maintain that relationship. And then we come back and we do something else for them. We come back and we build a pool house for them. We build a detached garage for them. We finish their basement or whatever it is. And then, you just have that lifetime relationship. It's pretty neat. And I think you guys kind of capitalize on that down there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I tell the guys all the time that we're a service company. We're here to provide a service for our clients. We're here to build a relationship with people. We're a service and relationship based company. I think everybody can relate to that and understand that. So we want to be able to provide that service and build that relationship forever. Yes, we've got a separate team that comes in for the management side because the project managers of the construction, they're on to the next one. And so they're unable to really provide that hands-on intimate service that we want to be able to offer our clients long-term because they're busy going to the next job. So we've developed a whole separate entity and team revolving around, those small maintenance tasks that need to be done around the house and that continual property management piece where they're walking through and checking on things. They got a single point of contact, no matter what service person they need to bring into their house. They call their account manager and they say, "Hey, I need an HVAC tech." It's like, "Great, I got the HVAC tech." So we don't even have to provide our clients with a list of subs that worked on their house post-construction. It's like, here's your new account manager. You just call him and he'll handle it.
That's really good. I can't, when you first got into the group, the other thing you guys have to be concerned about is hurricanes, right? I mean, you guys have these, yep. You'll board up, you'll get them ready for the hurricane, and then you'll go and check on the houses after the hurricane, which is a whole nother something or another that we don't deal with in Ohio. And so that's got to be somewhat challenging. But do you ever get used to, I mean, is that just something like we deal with big storms, but they're nothing like that. Do you ever just get used to that stuff? Like, hurricanes coming, we're going to be all right.
At certain intensity levels, you do. Tropical storm, even maybe a category 1, you're kind of like, it's going to be a big bad thunderstorm. But I mean, not really. I mean, it's stressful. It's challenging. You're concerned about people's homes. People are relying on you to get them ready. We've become the manufacturer's rep for a storm preparation product that we put on doors and windows during construction or after construction that we can sell people. That's easy for us to deploy. It's super durable. It's strong. It's, Miami-Dade rated. So we've got things at our disposal that can make that easier for everybody. We build storm preparation plans for all of those properties that we manage. So prior to a storm coming through, as part of our onboarding with them into that division, is we build a plan. Say, hey, if the storm's coming through with this intensity level, this is what we're going to do. So everybody's kind of already got that peace of mind, and we've got a script for each property and what's expected of them as far as preparations. But I was talking to some guys about this at the last Builder 20 meeting in Maine, where, from a natural disaster standpoint, hurricanes are the one situation where, we get a week's plus notice that this thing's rearing down on us, right? You get a tornado or a blizzard or a dust storm or, earthquake, and it just happens.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you don't really get any notice, preconceived notice. So you can't really prepare. We have, for better or worse, we've got a week or two of forecasting saying, hey, there's a storm headed your direction. You need to start preparing. And so we can prepare, but it also adds this level of, kind of uncertainty and stress for 2 weeks prior. It's like, oh gosh, we got to get all these houses ready.
And if your weathermen, weather people are anything like they are here in Southwest Ohio, they're 50% of the time they're right every time. And so if you do all that work and you're boarding everything up and it just passes
high.
you by.
Yeah, 50% is probably giving them a lot of credit. I understand it's Mother Nature, right? They do the best they can with the data that they're given. There's this one Instagram page, Mike's weather page. It's just this guy down in Florida who usually wears a bucket hat on Instagram. And I follow his forecast all the time during storm season, because he's just fun to watch and he's super knowledgeable. But he's using all those same data points and he's compiling a forecast that's usually in line with, the weather, Jim Cantori and all the Weather Channel people, but it's, a little bit more unique sometimes. And I feel it's just more relatable.
Makes you feel good about it. It's the same information, just makes you feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about getting it. So
yeah, maybe so.
Let's talk about custom homes, because I think in an area like where Don and Craig are building is in Bloomington, and where we're building in Southwest Ohio, and you talk about custom homes, and they're neat houses. I mean, they're definitely custom. We're doing some really, really cool stuff, but it's a farm field. It's land. I mean, I'm so proud of all the stuff we do. But then when we get to your place down there, now we're talking about, when I think about custom, you're talking about 4 stories, you're 6 stories, whatever it is. It's on the beach. It's all this storm rated protection stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable houses that are, sometimes in upwards of tens of millions of dollars. Their lots are $1 million a piece or more. And it's just incredible. How does that you're in a town where this is what you do. Does that work ever run out? And how do you continue to find more lots? And what's your program down there for building these unbelievable cool houses down there?
Well, our marketing program is to provide an amazing service and an exceptional experience in hopes that those homeowners will continue to sing our praises to their friends. And we, oftentimes are entertaining realtors and architects and interior designers and architectural designers, all those people, to just continue to build rapport, so that as, however the job comes to be, sometimes it's through us, sometimes it's a realtor, sometimes it's an architect, we want to have strong relationships everywhere. So we work really hard to build a positive experience for everybody involved in the project from start to finish, and keep everybody in the know and up to date of what's going on, because those relationships are extremely valuable to us. As far as land is concerned, I mean, we do a lot of tear downs. Houses in the flood zone have specific restrictions for what you're allowed to do when it comes to a renovation. So we've run into many opportunities to renovate properties that we can't. We have this FEMA rule called the 50% rule for flood zones. And if we can't qualify a renovation within that 50% rule, then we're really handcuffed as to what we can actually do on the renovation side. And so often the only option is to tear it down and start over. So even when it comes to tearing down a house, we try to make that an experience. We'll allow the homeowner to go in there and bust out some windows or whatever. We'll often bring in the fire department or the police department to use it for training prior to tear down. Trying to find ways to keep the community involved, to know that we're not just sending this house to waste. One, we're too restricted on what we could even do to improve it. But 2, we're going to put back something that's even better and going to be a value to the community throughout. So that's how we approach it. Our lots, to your point, we're not building on farm lots. Most of these beachfront lots are, 50 by 100. They're not big. We have small buildable footprints, but that's why we have to go vertical. So we put them on pilings. We've got the garage and the foyer underneath, and all the living stuff is up top. So a lot of in-home elevators, those kinds of elements to make the house more accessible.
It's unbelievable, and I can't describe it over a podcast, what you do, and hopefully people listening to this podcast will go to your website and see all the cool things you do. But I think that client expectations, and this is a topic that you brought up, is that the experience and how they're going, and that's really what I really focus on so much, because I think that so many people have houses, but they had a horrible experience building their house. But the expectations of what you're going to get is one thing. You can control that. But the client expectations of, they're like, hey, I want this, or I want this, or I want this. That's got to be really, really ever changing for you guys, especially when it's on the beach. You're talking about not just inside the house, but outside the house. And when people talk to me about price per square foot all the time, which I hate, I think it's the craziest thing in the world, is trying to judge that, but you got to have a baseline somewhere. A lot of times we have as much square footage outside as we do inside. And so I would think that you guys have as much money and time into the porches, the rooftops, the pilings, and all those other things that come into play, as opposed to kitchen and bedroom space, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Everybody uses price per square foot as the metric. And I agree. We have to have a metric of some kind, right? Like, we have to be able to tell people this is kind of what we qualify our product at. But that price per heated square foot is including the cost of what it took to do everything outside. You may have extensive porches. You may have a pool with, marble pool deck. Like, those aren't heated elements, but they still qualify within a price per heated square foot. And so it's really hard to say, hey, this is our price point, and compare that against somebody else, because we may build a 4,000 square foot house that has 3,000 square foot of outside space. So we're building 7,000 square feet, and we're qualifying that cost in 4,000. So it is really hard to use that as a metric.
I think that one of the guys in the group said, how much does a car cost per pound? How much does a bag of groceries cost? When you're talking about price per square foot, that's the same question. What's that cost?
That's a great analogy.
So it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah.
But so the when we talk about because everybody always comes up to me and says, what's the building materials doing? Are they still going up? And I'm like, I would imagine that we are kind of flattened out on a lot of things, but it's tough to look at that unless I'm looking at every single 2x4. I know the price per yards and looking at all those kind of things, but every house that we have is so much different. And so when people talk to me about cost of materials, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would assume it would be the same. I mean, some of our houses have 50 or 60 different double, triple, and quad girders and different steel beams in them, and all these different things that play into the cost of the house. And so it's like, yeah, that was more expensive, but I couldn't tell you if that beam was more expensive than the house I built last week or the one that I priced out 6 months ago, because it's different sizes, different lengths, different everything. How do you guys balance that as far as looking at rising cost and answering that question?
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest challenges that there is, because in some instances we're putting together construction budgets, as our structural plans are being developed. And so we may be working with the engineer to understand what components he's considering in different parts and pieces of the structure. But, we've built houses where, we're supposed to drive pilings to a certain bearing capacity, and the piling guy is tracking that as he's hitting the piling with the hammer. And we've run into situations where we've had to drive pilings 30 feet deep, splice another one on top of it, and keep going because we couldn't hit our bearing capacity in a certain spot. There was just a hole in the ground, essentially. Even with the soil test, we're not going to know exactly what every single piling is going to do on that property until we start hammering pilings into the ground. So there is a lot of that. We can do the best that we can to try to be prepared for some of those overages, but not all of them are avoidable.
Yeah, and if I get something to that effect, if I get a number from my painter and it's $150,000 to paint the house, and I'm like, man, I was thinking it was going to be $100, I could call him up and say, hey, why is this more expensive? And he's not going to say, well, the paint was more expensive. He's going to say that, well, you got 30 more windows on this house. You got painted brick, and you've got this hardy, and he'll roll down through it and say, okay, it wasn't the market that made it more expensive. It was me. It was us designing the house. It was the customers. We're the ones that made it more expensive, more so than the market made it more expensive. And I think that material cost gets a lot of traction in the press when things go awry. When especially when we were coming out of COVID, and our plywood is normally $38 a sheet for the 3/4 and something like that, and it was $100. That's insane. And availability of materials and those kind of things. But the more ideas that people get in luxury building, the more expensive the house, the more cost per square foot, the more rising cost of materials goes in there. So I think that's something that's important for you to think about or to talk about here. So when you're talking about, like, we're talking about this price per square foot, which drives both of us crazy. But when you've got tile that's going into one of these bathrooms that's, $65, $75 a square foot just for the tile, and the neighbor's house had tile that was $10 or $15 a square foot, that will change the price of the house drastically. How do you guys, we don't, and I don't want to regulate that because I want my customers to get what they want. And I would imagine you guys do too. How do you guys do your selections and picking all those kind of things out? Are you working with designers? Is it architects making those decisions? Do you guys do that? How do you guys do that?
it's a combination of homeowners, architects, and designers. I don't particularly want to be the person making selections for people. I would prefer to be the person executing the selection on the site. I'm happy to offer my opinion on things as I see them come across, and maybe I've had experience with a product that looks amazing and it just isn't. So I've offered my opinion constantly and continually. I'm happy to do that, but it's about education. We just try to educate our client on how they're getting the value for the dollar. When we're in the market that we're in a lot of situations, the client does want what they want. To your point of X dollar a square foot tile, like they want what they've picked, and as long as they understand why it brings value to the house and why it brings value to the project, then it's okay and it makes sense. And in some instances, it is all about the dollar, and we just have to go and find ways that we can value engineer. Maybe it's other line items that we can find funding in that we can, compensate for some of those overages. Or maybe it's just that we need to go find a comparable product that's going to give them a similar style and aesthetic for less price. So we spend time with clients in that case, but educating the client along the way is crucially important and a big piece of our process. We rarely have a whole house of selections made prior to building a budget. So we are taking allowances provided by the designers or the subcontractor who's doing the tile install that says, hey, this is a reasonable allowance for this house. Use this number, and this is what our install cost is going to be on top of it. But to your point, like, even if they pick a $12 square foot tile, but they run it in a crazy, pattern, there's added labor that wasn't expected necessarily.
Yeah.
So there's just so many factors. I tell clients all the time, it would be impossible for me to give you a list of selections that are going to have to be made ahead of time in a construction project. Like we don't have enough paper in the office to make that list. Like there's so many choices that have to be made, and we want to be here to guide people and help them make the best decision for them. And some of that means, hey, this is where we stand on the budget, so you can understand where we went over on a different selection and where we can save on this next one. So it's all about education. Again, it comes back to that relationship, the trust that we're going to provide them what they're looking for as far as, the information that they need, and all that stuff. What does
a custom home mean to you? What does the word custom mean? Because it gets tossed around quite a bit up here. They even have a term called semi-custom, which I don't believe in. Either you are production or you're custom. There's no in between. So I think that what does custom mean to you?
I have racked my head around alternative words to use for construction or custom for years, because I agree, like it's a little bit saturated of a number, right? Like somebody's going to tell you they're building a custom home, and what it means is you're going to get 2 paint color choices. Right. Hey, now it's custom. But your neighbor has the exact same house and chose between the other same 2 paint colors. Like that's not really custom. To me, custom is a blank slate. It's unique to your property. It's unique to your lot, and it's a true prototype. Part of our presentation that we give to clients pre-construction when we bring them to the office is just a reminder that, hey, this project is a prototype for us. We've built and remodeled countless houses in this town and in this area, and maybe even in your neighborhood, but we've never built your house. We've never built on this lot. We've never built with you, and we've never gone through this process with you. So in that way, like, it is as much of a prototype as anything can be in this world.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that when you talk about custom and making decisions and doing all those kind of things, it's such a crazy deal. And I think I want to back up a little bit. Before I was talking about you're building on the beach and I'm building up in the country. Everybody has a special thing. I think I would struggle so bad because I've done it down in the city of Cincinnati where you're building a 40-foot wide house on a 50-foot wide lot, and it's so tight, and it's everything. You're managing completely different than you would where you're up there, blowing out a big basement on a 115-foot wide ranch. A guy in the neighborhood building a house would struggle going out and putting septic systems in and building 2,000 foot of driveway and water lines and electric. I think everybody has a specialty when it comes to these things, and that still doesn't mean custom. Right. I think that just means you're operating in a different category. Custom, yeah. I agree with you 100%. We're putting a blank slate. We're drawing it. We're designing it. But again, and you know, you have to have that edge like you have, to be able to look at something and go, that's garbage. I'm not going to
Right.
I'm not going to build that. That does not look right. Or I'm not going to trim it that way, or I'm not going to finish it that way. And that's what makes, you know, your Konrady and Sons company unique. And you're not willing to accept just whatever, you know, you're going to go out there and make sure you're paying special attention to it.
I mean, I have that conversation with realtors and developers and people all the time of, hey, you know, I've got an opportunity for you to take down 3 or 4 lots here and build 3 or 4 houses. Maybe you can pre-sell them, but you know, they're going to be specs. And we've never done spec. We've often contemplated it, but what I tell them is like, look, I understand how a spec home, I understand the value that it can bring to me because I'm able to drive the train entirely, right? I'm able to make all those selections. I'm able to bring the plan and the design, and certainly I can probably make this project go faster because I'm not going to be waiting for decisions to be made. I'm just going to make them. As I build my own houses, I've built 2 for myself now. Like those timelines were typically faster than a regular house because there was no delay in decision making.
Right.
And I understood the process well enough to be able to be ahead of any upcoming decisions. But what I also tell people is that, like, I'm not here to just throw up a house that isn't going to be up to my normal custom home standard with my name on it to try to make an extra dollar. Like, that's not a program that I'm really that interested in. I'm happy. I would love to build a spec home or 2 and be able to market it as a Konrady and Son custom home that is for sale. I think our name brings value to properties that are for sale, but I'm not going to go in and build an inferior product just because there's a dollar out there to be made. The product has to be consistent with what I would build for anybody.
I think I always go back to the old college saying, I'm not in it for the t-shirt. And so I think that I don't sit down with people and push for the deposit. I don't push for the contract deposit money. And I'm like, you know, pushing. I'm trying to run at their pace, but I'm here because I, just like what you said, we're here to build your house. I mean, we want to make a great house. So do you have any hard stances on things? Because I've learned things over the years and I've said, hey, I want to make sure I never do that again. And probably building a market house would be one of those things. I want to continue to build these houses for these people, directly for them. And I mean, that's chasing, maybe you had an opportunity, maybe, I don't know, but I don't want to own things, you know, that I don't want to be in debt, you know, kind of stuff like that. Do you have any of those kind of things in your head that you're like, hey, I'm never going to build in this area again, or I'm never going to own lots, or do you have any of that? Or are you wide open?
No, I mean, I don't necessarily have any of that, but what I do want to emphasize is the fact that I don't want to build a house that I know is going to cause whoever buys it problems later.
Right.
Right. It's still got my name on it. And so I can feel comfortable with the process of construction that we offer on the custom side. Right. I know we're using structural components that are more expensive than code requires. I know we're using higher grade insulation and higher grade efficiency systems with HVAC and hot water heaters and things. Like, I know we're spending more money on those things in our construction program, but I also know that long term, those things provide the house and the client a lot more value. And so I don't want to build a house that I turn around and just sell to somebody because it means I got to make a quick buck. And 3 years later, they're like, this house is a piece of junk. Like, it's moldy or it's drafty or, you know, it's just shaky, whatever it might be. Like, just because I was like, oh, I've got an opportunity here to make some money.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that if my name's on the product, it needs to be consistent no matter who it's for. I want to be able to provide those updates and upgrades to people because that's just where our standard is.
I love it. And that's what makes you the great builder and the great person that you are. It's your integrity and it's what you stand for. So let's switch some gears. Let's talk about our Builder 20 group and the transition. I was the chairperson of that group and you are now the leader of the group. We just made that transition back in Maine, and I don't know if that's settled in with you until I just said that just now. But you know what? So you, I think your first meeting was in Anacortes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so what's that group meant to you? What's it done for you so far, and how has that shaped what your outlook is on this business?
So that group to this point has just been a massive resource for me in helping to build a level of process and procedure within a company that's scalable. I mean, you look at, our spring meetings are all about financials. It's certainly brought an element of understanding and expectation to how our financial reporting systems can improve. I mean, that's something that we've continually tried to improve on, but understand also, I took over a business from my dad who ran it on legal pads. And so, as I've scaled a business, I've also been building processes. And so I'm starting somewhat from a blank slate when it comes to those things. And so having a group that's challenging me to have that kind of record keeping, to be able to go into a meeting and confidently and accurately explain how my business is actually doing, has been invaluable. Also, getting a chance to break away and being off site in an area that's not known to me, a new town with new builders, with new people, brings another perspective. One of the biggest things that it's done for me is validation. It's validated some of the struggles that I have on the day-to-day operating my business, right? Some of the challenges that I run into with client relationships or subcontractor dealings or, billings, whatever the challenge that everybody faces might be. It's easy to feel like you're on an island when you're at home doing that thing on the day-to-day grind. But to sit down for 2 or 3 days, twice a year with another group of 12 or 13 guys and you find out that everybody has similar challenges, one, it's validating. And two, it provides this huge network of ways that you can go about trying to alleviate those in the future. I'm not here to invent the process for every single thing we do. I need feedback. I need guidance, and to have other people that are dealing with the same sort of thing allows this huge opportunity for collaboration, and building some of those out. And then of course, like I'll stress to anybody in any meeting, and you even mentioned this as we got onto the call, most of these meetings are really made in the margins. So, you're sitting in a conference room and make some stuff out, but when we take a break and we go out to dinner and we go to a bar and have a beer afterwards, and you get face to face with guys and sit down and have a real conversation. You're going to talk about things that we went through in the conference room. You're going to talk about life. You're going to talk about families. You're going to build relationships with people that's going to allow you to get even more value out of just what the speaker may have brought to the table that day.
I 100% agree. And I mean, first thing I have to say to that is I don't know what your problem is with legal pads. I mean, it's a very helpful tool in our business, and I don't know why you have to bring it up. But I think about our Builder 20 group. There's a movie called Pushing 10 with John Cusack and Billy Bob Thornton in it, and they're all air traffic controllers, and they're all like, you got to be, everybody thinks that building houses is like the most stressful thing ever, but I think that is considered being an air traffic controller is like one of the most stressful jobs in the world. So they're all a little bit goofy, and they all have the same personality. So they all have to like hang out together and do things together. And that's what I think about when I as a builder and I get together with other builders. It's because we all have the same screwed up mentality. We're all bipolar, probably. Yeah. We have to be happy. We have to be sad, and we have to hang out and be buddies. We have to be friends with our customers, but be stern with them. It's always something like that. But I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that group is just such a valuable portion or part of what you can do. You can learn so much from it, and just being around others that you can trust and lean on and learn from. And I think that when you're in business, I always think of the old guys, and I don't know if this is your experience with your dad or not, but I mean, they were hardcore, and so when I look at those older guys, they would never ask for help, I mean, and they would never think about, we just had your mom and Seth come in and be our speakers in Maine, which was one of the coolest meetings ever and had the most out of the box thinking. And Seth is a therapist, and your mom is focuses on stress release, right? And relief. And that's an easy way to put it. I know that's not what it is, but can you imagine some of those guys in the 70s just reaching out and saying, hey, I need a therapist? No way. I mean, they would cut their finger off and put dirt in it and work the rest of the day. I mean, they're not going to ask for help. But today is such a different way to be around these guys in this Builder 20 group and getting help from other people and learning from other people and learning from their competitors sometimes and like-minded folks that are in their business. So I agree. I mean, it's really cool.
I think construction, at least I don't know outside of custom home building, and I don't know much as far as, commercial construction or industrial construction is concerned. And I know those are much more, business transactions than they are personal transactions. But, one thing I feel like I've seen a shift of over the last, 5 or 6 years is that construction and home building is becoming much more of an expectation that it is actually a functioning business versus just owner operator, chucking a truck, driving around, wearing his nail bags, building houses. One of the most asked questions I get from clients during an interview, one of the first questions I get is, who's going to be my project manager?
Yep.
They recognize now that they want a team that they can trust, and they want, of course, a construction company owner that they feel very comfortable with, but they also want a project manager who's capable, that's not the owner, because they want somebody who's going to be able to be dialed in and focused on all the intricacies and details of what they're asking for. And to own a company versus being able to manage a project are two separate jobs. And, I want to continue to be a resource for my project managers, and I continue to keep, very close tabs on all of our construction projects because it is my name and my reputation, and that's just what I'm signing clients up for on an experience level. But I want to have dedicated resources to each individual project so that client can receive all of the high touch things that they're expecting out of us.
I agree. I think that, I know we're talking about Builder 20, but I think that when you're focused on your client, my goal, and we go into the sales process, and you're talking about being in the sales process and the questions they ask. But the first thing I'm thinking of is I want to make these people proud. I want to make them proud of us. I want to make them proud of their home. I want to make them proud of the decisions they've made. And it's a goal, so I'm always fighting to make sure that we did what we said we were going to do, and that we were going to make those people proud. And it's not always easy, but it's definitely my goal of what we're going to do. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's the process has its challenges. Again, no matter what, it's a prototype. And so there's challenges on all ends of the process every time. The homeowner's got some challenges, the contractor has challenges, the team has challenges, the product has challenges. But what we're dedicated to doing is trying to alleviate any challenge that comes up and make it the right thing in the end. And so that at the end of the day, everybody can feel that they got the experience and the service and the product that they wanted. And that's the ultimate goal. Like, I just want people to be proud of the product that they're putting out there. And sometimes clients and construction teams alike they're just tired at the end of a job. It's lasted a long time. They're decision fatigue, everybody's just worn out. And so, I tell my guys all the time, like, we made it, let's just give them a little bit of time to be in their house. Like, don't push them into making any more decisions right now. Like, let's just finish with the decisions we've got. Let them get into their home. Let them enjoy it. Let them start to feel proud of it. And then we'll come back in. And that's where we've got, that service team. We'll come back in and service any piece of equipment or utility that needs to be serviced here, because we know we can't simulate living in a home prior to them moving in there. But just give them a chance to breathe and give them a chance to appreciate where we are. We can have a chance to appreciate what we've done, because we're head down, blinders on through that whole process too.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's always a tough part. We didn't get to run this thing through a tester, like they do in a factory.
Yeah.
We're the manufacturer. It's built right in front of you, and now you're the user. You're going to be the one that's going to test it. But on the Builder 20 group, what do you see as the future of that group? Do you see it maintaining? Do you see any changes that you feel like need to be in place, or how do you shape that group as you move forward?
I think what's so valuable about that group is that it's got such a unique mix of people. It's got people at every different end and stage of their career, right? We've got some guys that are kind of going off, on their twilight tour. They're building whatever they want to do just to build it. We've got guys that are in growth mode, that are hungry and wanting to build a business and wanting to, take on more and more and more. And they're sitting in that group learning from other people how to scale and how to set up processes and how to set up, people for success so that they can build a bigger business and take on a bigger footprint. we've got people in that group that are going through transitions, whether it's ownership transitions or father-son ownership transitions. We've got so many different people within that realm of that group that I think it's going to continue to kind of cycle and bring in new blood that's at different stages of their career. I expect that for the most part, new people that may come into that group are going to be in a position where they've been really successful up to this point, but they've kind of plateaued and they need help getting to the next level. And that's where they're going to get value out of that group. And so I see the group getting to a point where it's got young blood. It's got people that are really successful, but are interested in being able to do more. And that's where we're going to be able to have a lot of collaboration and have people continually sharpening their pencil on some of those systems and processes.
I would agree. I think one of the most unique parts about that group that I was always amazed by is that you're down on the beach. I'm in Southwest Ohio. You got Dan Geis up in the mountains, and you got Adam out in Iowa, and I mean just all around the place. Everybody's building different things, and the only reason I said Dan Geis's name is because he gets mad if I don't mention him on every podcast. So, but I mean, you got guys building all different places of the country, all different age groups, all different business models, so to speak, and yet we all come together, and we've been able to collaborate on best practices, and even if it comes down to something that's outside of just running a business or outside of building, and you leave there with pages of notes and say, man, this is how I'm going to become a better business person. This is an opportunity to become a better builder. And by the way, I made some really, really good relationships and friendships in that group. Yeah. Which is,
and what's even interesting is that, there's been multiple meetings that we've been to where companies and partnerships and teams that were in the meeting before have dissolved within 6 months time. Yeah. Right. I mean, that brings a level of realism to the world, and my market may be exploding and somebody else's is just straight up flat. And, that opens, some of those guys' eyes to, man, I need to make sure that I'm building a company that can survive any economic position, because I don't want to dissolve between now and the next meeting because I have no work.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's part interesting. I think it's also interesting. We've got a lot of guys in that group that are, migrating into secondary markets. And so they're expanding their business outside of their home territory and taking over brand new markets and building footprints there. I think that's a really unique piece. We've got 4 or 5 guys doing that right now.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty interesting too.
I think that's amazing. I had a guy named David Dries here on the podcast, and it's Dries Homes. It's still a family owned and operated business, but they're in Texas, they're in North Carolina, they're all over the place, and they're just a big builder. And thinking about his dad and his grandpa, and I'm like, how do you build houses in Northern Kentucky? And one day you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to try and build some houses in Dallas. I'm going to go down there and try give it a shot. But I mean, they're super smart people, and they do their homework, and they see a vision. They see a plan moving ahead, and then it takes the balls to go do it. I mean, that's so much of it. And I think that's incredible to watch that. I'm getting older, and as I get older, I'm more like, hey, this is the path that I know where I need to be. I'm going to adjust if the market makes me and forces me. But this is the path I feel really good about. And so I get excited to watch guys do those things and make those decisions and cheer them on. But I do not, if somebody came to me right now and said, hey, unless I always have this dream of like finishing my last house up here in November, and then I wouldn't start another one until like May. I could just go on vacation for 6 months. Maybe I could go build a house in Wilmington with you. I could come down there and work for you for 6 months, and we could take long walks on the beach and everything. It would be fun. So let me ask you this. So when you're a second generation home builder, and so do you ever take offense to people thinking that you work for your dad or that you've been silver spooned or anything like that? Have you ever had that reaction to anybody, or has anybody ever come up and said anything to you like that?
So in our local market, so my dad, his company was always called Custom Cuts Construction. As I was a kid, that was the name of his company, Custom Cuts Construction. But everybody knew Ralph Konrady. I had an uncle who was building here at the time too. Everybody knew Ron Konrady. So I had a foundation built. When I got my contractor's license, we changed the name of the company to Konrady and Son Construction. And when I was designing the logo with a family friend, she was talking to me about what my goals were. And I told her, I said, the foundation of Konrady in this town on the construction side has been built. That's something that I can be really proud of, that I can really take and use to my advantage. I said, but it's my job now to build the and Son name to be as strong as the Konrady name. And that's been my mission since I started in this industry, is to build up the name, the and Son part of Konrady and Son to be just as strong as the Konrady name. And so I don't ever take offense to people saying you work for your dad. And I've been in this long enough now that question becomes less and less. People now see my dad and they go, wow, your son's really doing amazing things. And, for people to go out of their way to say stuff like that to him, or to say something to me about, wow, I can't believe what, you and your dad have been able to build. There's an immense level of pride there. Because as he and I were going through an ownership transition a few years ago, and we were talking about that, the question became like, what is the value of this business, right? Like we had to try to come up with a valuation of what our business is worth. And the business is worth so much behind what his or my involvement in it is. And having the same name means that we're both out there with the same name. And so I could have gone and started my own company and named it Tanner Konrady Construction. And it probably, I think I take for granted how much value my dad's presence alone and involvement in the business in any capacity it is. And it's currently in pretty low capacity because he just kind of is there as what I call our legacy advisor. But having him there as a legacy advisor brings a lot of value and a lot of comfort to people, because they recognize that, it is about a legacy for me. It is about continuing to build his name and build our reputation on what the foundation of what he built started as.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I say that because we're in a family owned and operated business. My parents were builders before we were, and I think that there is it's the people and the people that know you really cheer you on. They're your cheerleader, and they know what you're doing, and they know what you're going through every single day and what it takes to be here. And then there's a whole nother group that just pisses me off, that thinks that things were handed to me. And I had a guy say, "Hey, you had different opportunities than I did." And I'm like, really? Yeah.
When I first started for my dad, when I was, 18 years old, and I jumped in full time, there was certainly periods of time where I was expecting to get that kind of feedback and opinions from people. And I made it my mission to, work with them in the trenches and prove my worth outside of just what my dad was able to bring to the table. Again, that's the mission, to build the and Son name, to be just as strong as the Konrady name. And that's something that I've worked extremely hard on since I was 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. And the power and the effort and the strength and the integrity and the discipline it takes to carry that legacy is something that I talked to everybody about. That I heard Bob Castellini, the owner of the Reds, say one time, "Hey, this thing was here before we got here, and it's going to be here when we leave. And I want to just make sure that we maintain it and we make it better for when we leave." And I feel the same way about Wheeling Builders, and I tell everybody here at the team, "Hey, this legacy." It's not what he was doing. I mean, this company's not what he was doing, but it's a legacy, and it's our family's legacy. And it was here when we got here. Maybe it'll be here when we're gone, but we want to make it better, and we want to do great things. And carrying that on is really, it's a lot of pride. And for the naysayers or the people who got something stupid to say about it, and then, you can probably see their worth at face value. But it's something I always think about with people who carry on a family tradition. How much grief do you take from other people about it? It's always a question. But you and your dad and your mom have a unique relationship, and it's so cool. When I first met you, I remember having this vision vision of you guys being in like a yacht club. You guys got the sweaters around the neck, and your dad is just like as pretty gets. And when we got down there to Wilmington and I sat down with him for the dinner that first night and started talking to him. I'm like, I don't think I want to leave here. I love these people. This is so cool. They're such down to earth, unique, hardworking people, and have enjoyed every minute of getting to know them. So one of the things that I think about with you is you're a great manager and a great leader, and when you're with your team, you see opportunity. And do you ever hold back on thinking that you need to hire somebody, or are you always looking to hire somebody? How do you do that building that team up to make it really good people and making sure that they're there and they're carrying your worth? I've never, almost all of us had complaints about people who worked with us in those groups and through the years, and I've never heard you have anything bad to say about the people who work for you. How do you maintain that? How do you build that?
Well, I tell people that we're not necessarily hiring, but we're not hiring. We're always looking for good people. And if I find a good person, I'm going to find a way to plug and play them and use their resources and use their strength to build them as part of the team. Also, when we bring on new talent and we bring in a new person, I'm very hands off in the interview process. I defer that to the people that this person is going to be working with on a daily basis to do the majority of the heavy lifting on the interviewing. And, I trust that they're going to bring me candidates that they think they can work well with, that we have a need for, and that we're going to be able to implement into using as a strength in a position of the company that we feel we need to be strengthened. And so I stay pretty hands off. Culturally, it's crucially important that the people we bring in are a good fit. And I get involved, at higher level, executive level hirings, of course, because those are people that I'm going to have a lot more interaction with. But when it comes to the project management and the assistant project management or field people, or account managers or project coordinators on the property services side, I leave the majority of the hiring up to those people. And we're meeting, I'm meeting with my executive teams weekly to talk about capacity and talk about where we are on projects and our pipeline and what we have coming up and where we're going to deploy resources. And we're continually providing each other checks and balances into what resources do we need to improve in XYZ area of the business. And if we decide that we need a resource in this piece of the business, we'll build what we envision as a job description for this person, and we'll start to think about who's the right candidate. We get people, daily coming through our website asking us if we have openings. People want to come work here, which I think is awesome. But I also want to make sure that those people that are coming to work here are not just people that I feel I'm connected with. The whole team needs to be connected with them.
It's so important. I started this a while ago where before we hire somebody, the entire team interviews them to make sure that there's, for one, that there's not something I'm not seeing, and that everybody has a say in it. But the other thing is that these guys, something you don't realize until you have a really good team, is that these guys care. I mean, my team cares. And so when you're getting ready to hire somebody, they're like, oh man, we need to make sure that this person is it. I mean, they're going to fit into this group, that they're going to work hard. These people, almost all the people that I have here right now, they're if I send them a text message at 5:30 in the morning, or early in the morning, they're up, they're running, they're fired up, man. They're full of vinegar, man. They're ready to go. And I think that they want people like that who are, and we're sitting in meetings and they're talking about, here's what we could do. Here's a better way to do this. And here's how we can handle this. They're always looking to move forward, and they're not sitting in a meeting complaining and doing things that are probably negatively affecting it. So that's that culture building that you're talking about, and holding accountability is so important. It's something I worked on in that, and I could relate that directly back to our Builder 20 group, and saying, where they all came to me and said, hey, you need to change the culture of your business before you're going to get any good people to work there. And we worked on it really hard.
Yeah. So, it's exactly right. I think, the culture is crucially important. I can similarly relate to these guys, as we're sitting in strategy meetings talking about, what we're doing and how we're advancing. They're constantly bringing up ideas. Again, back to the Builder 20 group and that collaboration. Like, I don't have a silver bullet for every problem. Like, I need feedback. I'm looking for these people to bring ideas and support and offerings to how we can be better. It doesn't have to, it's not supposed to all fall to me on how to manage those things. It's supposed to be a collaborative environment, and that's going to help build that culture.
It's awesome, man. Hey, you're doing a great job down there, and I've enjoyed all the time that we've spent together through the years, and just can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to do this podcast interview, and just for always being a cool dude. But man, you got anything else to add to this deal?
Jeff. You too.
You got anything else to add to this deal? Anything you want to talk about? What, you got anything you want to get off your chest, Tanner, today?
You hit all the nails right on the head, Jeff. This has been an awesome talk.
You better say, hey, you tell your wife you love her, and just, I mean, because you don't want to be on, going across this nationwide podcast, and people just don't realize how much.
Right. Yep. And my family, I hope my family all knows how much I love them on a daily basis.
Every day, man. Hey, I just want to get and say thank you, man. I think you're awesome, and I've enjoyed this. Learning more about your company and hearing all the cool things you have to say. And, this is, it's been fun. So thanks for being here, brother. Thanks, and enjoy the warm weather down there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Tanner Konrady with Konrady and Son Construction right here on WB Download. All right, everyone. There you have it. Tanner Konrady from Konrady and Son Custom Homes there in Wilmington, North Carolina. I think it's Konrady and Son Construction, but man, they do so many cool things. I hope that if you guys are ever down in that area, you get a chance to swing in there and see the things that he does, but just see the town and see how cool it is. Man, I just am grateful for him to take time out of his day. Our last Builder 20 group, we were out and we were talking about the podcast, and I said, hey, why don't you be a guest on it? And he said, yes. And my friend Don Weiler from Bloomington, Indiana said, yes, let's get it on the schedule. We scheduled both of them, and here Tanner is. So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning about other builders, what they do, the type of construction that they do. But I also like to understand how they run their business, their philosophies, what drives them, what obstacles they hit every day. How do they balance their family versus a business, operating a business, and all the things that go into it. So and all these guys are from different parts of the country, which means that they have different things that they're facing. Running a business, part of it's probably a lot the same, but the different types of construction and things that they do is really neat. Check him out when you get a chance on the web, and go to their website. And hopefully, if you are lucky enough to be on vacation and go down to Wilmington, swing in and see them. Thanks again, Tanner, for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day. Don't forget, the next episode will be the second Tuesday in November, which will be election day, right? I think it is. It's an off year, so it's not going to be a hugely exciting day, but it is going to be exciting for a number of locals as they run for office. Don't forget about that. And my guest will be none other than my good friend Don Weiler from Bailey Weiler Construction over in Bloomington, Indiana. They are a design build firm over there, and we're going to find out about what drives them guys, and it'll be cool for the people here in Southwest Ohio, because Bloomington's kind of close to us, and we run parallel a little bit with each other on the things that we deal with over in what they call the Midwest. And I have no idea why they call it the Midwest, because we're more east. So don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download on your favorite podcast service. Don't forget to share this podcast with all of your friends and family and anybody else you could possibly think of, so we get more followers. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube as well, which is where we air our podcast as well. As well. And if you want to be part of the conversation, send your questions, send topics, send whatever you got. Tell me how bad I suck. Tell me how great it is. To the WB Download, WB Download at wielandbuilders.com, WB Download at WIELAND builders.com. And don't forget to check us out, like I said, about the Vandren, and that house we just finished. It is just unbelievably awesome. check it out on our website at wheelandbuilders.com and see some of the cool houses that we really get to beat to build, and maybe some of the customers that we get to work with. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to check us out here next month. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month, and this is our third, going into our fourth year of the WB Download, and we're excited to keep it going. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for being here. We are grateful.